among our people. Fact, hospitalizations in Texas are up more than 215% since Memorial Day. Fact, Florida just reported 10,000 new coronavirus infections in 2 days. Fact, Arizona, as of yesterday, had more than 60,000 cases, 1,467 deaths, and the infection continues to spiral out of control. Mr. Comptroller General, the GAO report raises questions about the IRS's handling of the economic impact statements, the stimulus checks to get people through this nightmare. According to your report, the IRS has issued around 160 million payments so far, but the agency has faced challenges and delays in getting checks to some of our most vulnerable people. That includes hard-to-reach populations like, quote, individuals without bank accounts, the homeless, people with limited or no internet access, people with limited English proficiency. Would you agree that these populations are especially vulnerable during a pandemic and recession and are likely in need of this federal support?
Absolutely.
And so should this be a top priority for the IRS to reach these populations?
Yes, and we'll be looking at their efforts to do so. I know they've started some on the Interagency Council on Homelessness and Men of Valor to help individuals coming out of prison. So we'll be looking at it and see if we have any additional suggestions.
Your report says that IRS faced difficulties identifying and then delivering payments to people who did not file tax returns in 2018 or 19, including recipients with low adjusted gross incomes. I've heard from a number of these people. These non-filers usually have incomes below $12,000 a year, and according to one estimate, there are as many as 12 million non-filers who may be at risk of missing out on their economic impact statement that they may need more desperately than the rest of the population. What should Treasury and IRS be doing now to ensure payments reach up to 12 million American non-filers without any further delay?
Yeah, they need to explore different data sources to try to identify these individuals. That's one of the things we're going to look at and make some recommendations to them.
Well, when will that happen? It's just a matter of some urgency. My office, and I'm sure my colleagues' offices, are just besieged with people who desperately need this money.
Yeah, we're working on it. I hope to have those recommendations by our next bi-monthly report.
Okay, I'm working through the weekend during this pandemic. I hope your people are working through the weekend too to get this done.
We wouldn't have been able to produce that report that you have there in 90 days since the law if we weren't working 24/7.
I appreciate that. GAO also reported that Treasury and IRS sent nearly $1.4 billion in payments to 1.1 million decedents, that is, Americans who'd already died. And I'd also heard from some honest constituents who called up and said, we got this check for my wife or my husband who's no longer with us. IRS apparently was aware this was happening back in March, but didn't begin to correct it until months later. What's up with that? That's just shocking. How'd that happen?
Well, IRS's original determination was that the law required them to send a check to everybody who filed a return in 2018 or 19. And so they figured it would include those people. So they did it on with foresight, that's what they were supposed to do. Then
wow, okay, just let me pause you there, because that seems to contradict common sense. In other words, because we said that it should go to everyone who filed taxes, they thought it should go to people who had died,
right,
who had filed taxes. All right, well, what is the law? Because some people were saying, should we cash this check? Why would the government be sending it to us?
Right. Yeah, no, I agree.
Well, what is the correct legal interpretation?
The correct interpretation, we believe, is Treasury's interpretation after that was that the intent was to help people who were affected by the situation, which wouldn't include people who were deceased. So they stopped it at that point in time after IRS had made the first 3 payments. So we believe the correct interpretation now is they should not have been sent, and our recommendation is to try to get as much of the money back as possible.
Okay, and they've changed that policy of sending checks to people who have died?
That's correct. Yeah,
okay.
They stopped that after the first 3 rounds.
All right, thank you very much, and I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raskin. The chair now recognizes Mr. Kim for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to begin by just addressing something that came up earlier in this hearing. It was talked about CDC guidance